morning. Welcome back again to the Community Health Education in Cable TV show. This initiative has been started between the collaboration of Mass General Healthcare Center, the Mass General Community Health Improvement Team, with the Chelsea Cable TV. We have been doing shows since 2009, and we have been gathering questions and concerns from the community to discuss multiple health issues. We have done over 13 shows, and we welcome you to join us again today in this show. Again, my name is Hong Shen Xiong. I work as a primary care physician in MGH Chelsea. Today, we want to talk a little bit about salt. This is an ingredient that we all put in our food, or we eat it even without putting in. There has been several concerns in the community about salt and its related diseases such as high blood pressure. Today we want to discuss that with our colleagues. First, I'm going to introduce you Pep Vicente, who is our community health worker at the Mass General Chelsea Healthcare Center.
Welcome everybody. Besides Dr. Chen, today we have Jennifer Vetri, one of our nutritionists at MGH Chelsea, and both of them are here to help us answer some questions about the intake of salt that the community has asked us. So how are you?
Great, thank you.
So welcome both to the show. Let me start with you, Jennifer. What is salt and why do we eat salt?
Salt is a white crystal-like substance that's made up of two minerals called sodium and chloride. We eat salt to add flavor to our foods, and salt is also used to preserve our foods or make them last longer. Salt our bodies need in very small quantities to help maintain fluid balance and also help our muscles, nerves, and blood vessels run smoothly.
So following on that, what's the difference between salt and sodium then?
Well, salt is often referred to as sodium, but technically there is a difference. Salt is a chemical compound and sodium is a mineral. Salt is made up of 40% sodium and 60% chloride. 1 teaspoon of salt, which is this amount right here, has 2,300 milligrams of salt or sodium.
So now a question for Dr. Cheng. Does eating too much salt cause high blood pressure, and how?
Yes, that is actually something that we have no doubt about, and many studies has confirmed that. Subsequently, many studies have researched what is the reason, and so far we know that sodium actually damages the lining of all the blood vessels. It also causes some of the cells of our body, like muscle cells and heart cells and kidney cells, die. Thus, it causes some scar tissue, and scar tissue doesn't function well, so can damage these organs. Also cause inflammation in the arteries or the blood vessels, and as we age, it makes it stiffer, so it cannot transport blood as well as usually. It makes the kidney, which is the filtering function of our body, also get damaged and cannot filter out the toxics of our body. And by the stiffening of the blood vessels and by the heart being replaced with scar, it can increase our blood pressure, because those are the main organs that control the blood pressure in our body. The kidney, which is controlling the amount of salt and pressure and water inside of body, the heart that pump these blood all around the body, and the vessel that conduct all around our body are the main organs, and salt affect all of them.
I see. And besides blood pressure, are there other diseases or health conditions related to eating too much salt, and what are they?
Yes, as we know, salt damage by itself the blood vessel, which actually pump blood and nutrients throughout our whole body. So it goes everywhere in our body. It will increase, as we know, high blood pressure. It will increase also the risk of heart disease, and it will increase the risk of kidney damage. Besides that, there's some studies that have shown that it might increase stomach cancer or other mineral issues in our body, such as osteoporosis. Also, because of the increase of the damage in the vessels that goes to our brain, it can increase the risk of stroke.
I see. So then, Jennifer, a very important question for you. How much salt does an adult need per day?
It's recommended that adults get less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium each day. And even though we know we need such a small amount, most adults are getting far too much with the average of 3,400 milligrams per day. And most of the sodium that we get, it's important to know, is actually coming from processed foods and restaurant foods, not the salt shaker.
I see. And how about children? Is there a maximum acceptable daily limit of salt for them?
There is a maximum limit for children as well. It's also recommended that they get less than 2,300 milligrams of salt per day. The older children get, the more salt and calories they tend to consume. Most kids are getting about 3,000 milligrams per day. And with them as well, most of the salt that they're getting comes from processed foods and restaurant foods, about 80%. And one other thing that I didn't mention about adults and sodium is actually even less is recommended than 2,300 milligrams, especially for people who have high blood pressure or heart disease or other medical problems like Dr. Chen Chung pointed out. So less is best.
I see. So what's the difference, Jennifer, between table salt, sea salt, and kosher salt? Is one type better than the others for my health?
The main differences between these three types of salt are flavor, texture, and how they're processed. All three types of salt have the same basic nutritional value, but often many people think that kosher salt and sea salt is much healthier. They have about the same amount of sodium by weight, and basically no matter which type of salt you prefer, it's important to limit all three types.
See, a question for Dr. Cheng that we get very often. So I don't have high blood pressure or any other health condition. So can I eat as much salt as I want? Is this correct?
Interesting question and not correct at all. As I think this question is linked to the question of like if children they have a new body, do they have to limit salt? And yes, we have to limit salt because it have shown that it will help to prevent diseases. As we mentioned, the more you load salt in our body, the more that you may damage, causing inflammation in the blood vessels that run throughout our body. So by eating less salt, we can increase the chance of our body surviving different diseases such as kidney disease, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke. One question that people might have is like, if I have the blood pressure normal, why do I need to lower more our blood pressure? One interesting thing that we know is that lowering the salt has higher effect when our body is damaged and less effect when we're healthy. So the lower the salt that we intake, the lower the chance that we develop those diseases.
I see. So Jennifer, foods with a lot of salt will always taste very salty. Is that true?
Foods that are produced with a lot of salt will typically have that salty taste that we're all so familiar with. But foods that are produced with sodium in any amount may or may not taste salty. And that's why it's so important to read the nutrition labels. Sodium can be hidden in different foods. For instance, it can be in baked goods, it can be in cereals and pastries, and foods that often taste sweet can even be high in salt.
I see. So how do I find how much sodium I eat?
By reading the nutrition labels is the best way to determine how much sodium you're getting each day. The sodium that's listed will tell you how much sodium is in the product per serving. And here we have a picture of a food label. And when you look at sodium, it will always be listed under the cholesterol and above the total carbohydrate, and the sodium content will be listed in the milligrams. And a food or a food product that has less than 140 milligrams of sodium means that it's a low salt food. The other thing you can do is you can also look at the percents. A food with 5% or less for sodium means low sodium, and a food 20% or more is high in sodium. The important thing to know though is if you double the serving size, you also need to double how much sodium you're eating.
I see. So I guess that there are lots of people asking themselves this question: what can I do to eat less salt when I prepare food at home? And how about when I go to eat out at the restaurant?
There are many tips that you can do or use to eat less salt at home and in restaurants. The first thing is don't use the table salt shaker at home. Instead of salt, you can use lemon juice, you can use salt-free herbs, or some of the potassium-based salt substitutes. You can use spices like garlic and pepper to add flavor to your food. And you want to remember that a little bit of salt adds up quickly. Be careful to read the nutrition labels again for sodium, and limit processed foods like canned soups, deli meats, frozen meals, and snack foods. We want to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy products. That's very important. When eating frozen and canned vegetables, we want to choose the no salt added or look for the lower sodium. And also we want to choose options that don't have sauce added to them. You can also rinse the canned foods, and that'll help reduce some of the sodium. When eating out, it's always best to limit eating out to just occasionally, because the salt and calories adds up very quickly in restaurants. You can ask the restaurant to prepare your meal without salt, and you can also ask for the chef to put the sauce or anything like that on the side to reduce the salt and calories as well. And a very important tip is always to eat half of what they give you in a restaurant and bring the other half home to also reduce the salt and calories.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your very, reflective questions. Lots to think about. And I wonder if any of you have a final word to share with our viewers about salt intake.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I think that those are very helpful tips. Like, remember always to read the label. And the two things to remember is the sodium less than 140 milligrams and less than 5%, and multiply by the servings that you take in the label that you're reading. Very helpful information also that you gave us, that most of the people that are getting salt are from processed food. We know that we have higher disease burden now of heart disease and hypertension is because we have a lot of choices outside and people do not have the time to cook at home. So enjoy your meal at home with your children, cook yourself, and eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. Remember also to check. Also, the natural food has some salt content. So if you add more salt in the natural food, you will also get extra salt. Remember that salt does not mean salty all the time. The food that tastes very sweet can be very high in salt. And I don't know, Jennifer, you want to add something else?
That's perfect. I think you summarized it great. I think my message to viewers would just be to try to include a variety of foods every day. As Dr. Chen Chung said, less processed foods, more fresh foods whenever possible. Read the labels. That's the best way to know how much salt you're taking in, and just to remember that less salt is better for your health.
Perfect. Then thank you both. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us again with this show, and keep tuning up for our upcoming shows. Thank you. Have a good day.